There's always a lot of confusion about Afrobeat, Afrobeats. A lot of people are using it as the same thing, and it's not. Hello, welcome back. My name is Oyin, and today we will talk about Afrobeats. Afrobeats music has become a global phenomenon. It is, maybe even the most popular music style, pop music style around the world. And I want to explain to you what Afrobeats is, what makes it such an interesting and appealing genre, what the origins are, and what is the difference between Afrobeats and Afrobeat. Let's go. So there have always been fights across the African continent, even before Afrobeats had become a global. Who owned actually the rights, the original of Afrobeats? And you can twist it and turn it, but if we really go to the essence, we can trace Afrobeats back to the western part of Africa, mainly Ghana, Nigeria. So Afrobeats is definitely a West African genre. Although when I learned music production and I learned about the different styles of African music, and I learned from Angolan music producers, I also found out actually that there are a lot of style patterns, rhythms, and ways of singing and expressing the music are from Angolan genres, Kuduro and Kizomba. And I think that is actually why it is, I think, okay to still argue about influences on the first styles of Afrobeats, is because we always have to remember the fact that Africa is a continent that has always been in motion. The way that mainly the Western countries during the colonial era divided the continent into different countries is like a very artificial thing if we consider the fact all the tribes, the thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s of different African tribes have always been traveling across the continent, and they have started to share their culture, to mix with other tribes and other cultures. And since music is always an expression of culture, it is very understandable that we find elements of different African music styles in different African genres. So that is the same for Afrobeats. So I was not surprised to find out that there are a lot of similarities actually, or parts of the music that make the music characteristic also in Kuduro and Kizomba, which are considered Angolan styles of music. Apart from that, we can say that Afrobeats was created in the maybe late 90s, beginning of 2000s in West Africa, but it also has a UK influence. Why do I say that? We maybe have now the chance to talk about Afrobeat. And there's always a lot of confusion about Afrobeat, Afrobeats. A lot of people are using it as the same thing, and it's not. Like, Afrobeat is actually a completely different style of music than Afrobeats. Yes, Afrobeats has elements from Afrobeat, but that's it. One of the originators of Afrobeat is Fela Kuti. He was like a soul, jazz, swing African artist. He created his style of music, Afrobeat, with these kind of elements that are kind of Western, but he made it his very unique style with his own language, written English, with the arrangement of his instruments. He made it like a very unique genre. What still a lot of Afrobeats artists do is to take some of the melodies, some of the rhymes, the way that he was pronouncing things in his music or pattern of his music, and take a small part of this and arrange it in a new way in Afrobeats. Afrobeats is very poppy. It doesn't have much to do with swing. It is more like a generic genre coming from hip-hop, Nigerian music. It has often elements of highlife music, Fuji music. That is another thing that we have to talk when we talk about Afrobeats, because a lot of the rhythmic patterns, the drums of Afrobeats, are significant for different styles of Yoruba music. In Nigeria, we have three main tribes. We have a lot of tribes. We have three main tribes, that is Yoruba, Igbo, and Hausa. And if we learn about the origins of Afrobeats and where the genre was created, we can see that it was mainly generated in parts that are also known as Yoruba land. So a lot of people claim that Afrobeat is actually Yoruba, even though we have a lot of big Igbo artists too. that do Afrobeats. I mean, I'm a Nigerian, so I know the difference when I hear it. The way that Igbo instruments and rhythms are created are kind of significantly different from the ones that Yoruba artists would create. Some of the instruments that we find in Afrobeats are very, very deep-rooted in Nigerian culture, West African culture. We also find a lot of instruments in these instrumentals that are typical for Yoruba tradition. The way that R&B, for example, hip-hop, or so Western music works, they have a certain pattern how they bounce on the beat. And for Afrobeats, this is usually not applied. That is, I think, why we feel, Nigerians, if a Western singer that is usually doing R&B or is usually doing pop music, like white music, sounds weird on Afrobeats, because the way that Yorubas or Igbos would bounce on the beat to the drums, to the pattern of the music, is completely different than what we know from Western genres. What makes Afrobeats Afrobeats? Even though it is a genre that is steadily evolving, the sound is steadily evolving, especially now that it has become mainstream Afrobeats, we often recognize that it has moved a lot towards R&B music, pop music, but I still feel like there are some elements of Afrobeats that you have to be very careful with to still have it be Afrobeat. That is, for one, the rhythms, the patterns of the drums. The rhythm has to sound familiar to feel right for African Nigerian music. The singing style has to follow this rhythmic and this style. There was actually like a Western artist, a pop artist, that did really well because his singing style was adapting to the rhythm of the beat in the way that African or Nigerian artists would do it, whether you like it or not. And I know that a lot of artists have tried to experiment and find ways around that, but I still feel that the language, the way you express the lyrics in Afrobeats matters. Even though by now we have a lot of artists that sing kind of in an R&B way, like Fireboy, he's still considered an Afrobeats artist, but he has a very R&B-ish style. And still at the same time, he uses his pidgin English, he uses his native language, which is Yoruba, and he uses lamba and some slangs that we know from Nigeria. And I feel like even though people try to say, oh, you can do Afrobeats in any language, I feel like it's not really true. Afrobeats is a part of a culture of Africans, of Nigerians. The culture expresses itself through the music, and the language is a part of the music. So that is my opinion. I feel like these elements are really like things that you will not able to completely change and still call it Afrobeats. Well, we can see that Afrobeats is a very dynamic genre. In Nigeria, we always have influences from other countries' styles on Afrobeats. We always have like a phase where the Afrobeat sound changes or is influenced by other styles. For example, when Afrobeats came up, it was very much related to, apart from the Nigerian music styles, high life, Fuji and so on, leaning on hip-hop, especially from the US. But that was also the time when we had big superstars like hip-hop and rap artists here in Nigeria already. So Afrobeats was very much leaning on hip-hop at that time. Then we had a phase, that was the rundown phase, when it was very, very vibey, and we had a strong feeling that Nigerian and Ghanaian music is mixing, or sometimes we were not even able to hear properly, is it from Ghana or is it from Nigeria? Then we had some Caribbean influences on it, and at the moment it's Amapiano, the genre from South Africa, that you will always find elements of that, or often find elements of that on Afrobeat songs, because at the moment Nigerians in particular love the Amapiano vibe, and they try to infuse their own music with these Amapiano vibes. So that's it basically. I hope I gave you the first overview about Afrobeats. Maybe next time we will talk about the gatekeeping in Afrobeats and Afrobeats going global. We already touched a part of that topic when I said that it's moving more towards R&B, Afrobeats evolving, growing internationally. Some Africans are not happy that people like Justin Bieber or Ed Sheeran are collaborating with Afrobeats artists, so we will talk about that too. And yeah, I hope you stay tuned and watch for next episode. And let me know in the comments which topic I should cover. And see you next time.